Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome on today's lecture, that is Theories of Wages, Module 16. I am Dr. Tilkaraj from University Business School, Punjab University, Chandigarh. The project name Swayam Prabha DTH MHRD, New Delhi. The price paid for the use of labor is called wages. But how much and on which basis wages should be paid to the workers for services rendered by them has been a subject matter of great concern. And there is a debate among economic thinkers for a long time. This has been given birth to several wage theories. That is, how much wages are determined, and out of them some important theories we'll discuss in this module. And I'm sure after completion of this module you will be able to learn the concept of wages, real wage and nominal wages, factor determining the real wages, demand for and supply of labor, theories of wages like subsistence theory of wages, wages fund theory, residual claimant theory, standard of living theory of wages, bargaining theory of wages, marginal productivity theory of wages, and last, modern theory of wages. Now let us define what is wages. In economics, the price paid for the use of labor is called wages. Labor is the amount of physical, mental, social effort used to promote or produce goods and services, and in an economy is called labor. In simple word, wages are the price paid for the use of labor. Like for land we pay the rent, capital interest, and entrepreneurs profit. Similarly, the payment made for the use of labor is called wage. But labor means any effort, whether the physical, mental, or social, to produce a particular commodity in economy is called labor. So a wage is a monetary compensation paid by employer to an employee in exchange for work done by him. When any employer employ to an employee for the purpose of some work to produce a commodity, and the reward in terms of money paid to him or her is called wage in economics. Wages are the part of the expenses that are involved in running a business. It is the part of the expense that are involved in the running of a business. The concept of wage, if you see, then it includes the payment of wages can be in different modes, like time wage. The wages which are paid on the basis of on the number of hours worked, 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours, that is called time base. piece based wages, the wages which are paid depending on the quantity of output produced. How much quantity has been produced by a particular labor, and the payment made to him on the basis of that the quantity of output is called piece basis. Simply, the worker is paid per unit of creation. When he create some commodity or goods or services, and according to the creation of unit or unit of a creation of the commodity is called piece basis. Similarly, task wages, a wage paid by a day or some fixed period of time, say 15 days, 1 month, on the condition that a minimum task be performed is called task wages. The wages which are considered accomplishment of a task for payment of wages is called task wages. Cash wages, the cash wages which are paid in terms of money, in form of money. Wages are paid in the form of check or maybe cash or money order, or direct deposit to an employee by an employer for the services rendered by them is called cash wages. Kind wages, the wages which are paid in the form of commodities, not in cash, not in money terms, but kind wages may be include non-cash remuneration received by an employee for work performed. For example, it may be in the form of food, drink, fuel, clothing, footwear, free or subsidized housing or transport facility, electricity, maybe free car parking, legal aid, maybe zero interest loans, and subside mortgage, etc. etc. So kind wage is not in cash remuneration, but these are paid to the workers in the form of commodities or maybe some other things which are not in liquid form, but they are in terms of commodity or something else, some other facilities provided to them for their contribution in producing a commodity or a services. Real wages of the workers include additional facilities to workers such as transportation facilities, medical facilities, accommodation, and another allowances in addition to their salary. They are also getting salary, but along with when employer paid to them some other facilities, maybe for housing facility or medical facilities, etc., is called real wage. A civil servant will get salary and along with maybe housing facilities, car, and other helping hand from the government. That is called the real wages. A real earning refers to the purchasing power of the worker's remuneration. McConnell says that real wages are the quantities of goods and services which one can obtain with his money wage. The other facilities along with his money wage is called real wages. Real wages can be estimated by adjusting money wage for the index of price. Say W is equal to, W means real wage, WM money wages, P price index multiplied by 100. So real wage can be calculated, that is money wages divided by price index multiplied by 100. Second is important, which is called as nominal wages. Nominal wages, also known as the money wages, and refers to the payment made to a worker for their services rendered in terms of money, cash payment. In money terms, the money terms is called as nominal wages. When an employer paid to employee cash for their services rendered by them is called money wages or nominal wages. Nominal wages or money wages refers to the amount for money which a laborer gets per day, maybe per week, or maybe per month, as per the agreement of the work. Now, these money bases or nominal bases depends upon the economic conditions, or economic condition of the labor depends upon the amount of goods and services that he can get with his money bases. More money bases, maybe his or her economic condition will be better. Less wages means economic condition is not good. Now let us discuss what are the factors determining the real wage. Which factor, this is very important, affect the real wage? The most important factors considered to be the purchasing power. Real wages are considered to be high if the purchasing power of money is more, and vice versa. When purchasing power of money is less, the real wages considered to be less. Additional facilities like the allowances for transportation, food, etc., given by the company to the workers, real wages of the worker considered to be high if the additional facilities will be more. Means if any employer provide more additional facility, the real wages will be high. Less additional facilities, the real wage will be less. Similarly, prices. If prices are rising, increasing, or purchasing power of money is falling, real wage will also fall. This is a positive relationship. When prices are rising, and or the means the purchasing power, when there is inverse relationship, price and purchasing power, higher price, lower purchasing power, then real will be also fall, and vice versa. On the other hand, on other thing remains the same. If money wages are more, real wages will be also more. There is a direct relationship between money wages and real wages. Period and cost of training also important factors which determining the real wage. More training, more cost involved, maybe less real wages. But on the other hand, if you have spent more money more period on the training or the services, that the real wage can be less. When time spent by the workers to learn a task is more, and if the expenses for the training are high for the worker, then the real wages will be considered to be low. If extra work done by a worker earns him or her additional income, then the real wages of the worker will be considered to be high. Additional income, if the employee provide more additional income, then real wages will be high. So additional income is also important factor which determine the real wages. Similarly, condition of work. The condition at work, like recreational facilities, hours of work, educational facilities, etc. affect the real wages. Future prospects of a worker. If the future prospects of worker are encouraging, then real wages is considered to be high for the workers. But there is a reverse, then maybe the real wages is considered to be low for the workers. Even the nature of work is very, very important. More risk involved, the real wages is considered to be less because cash money will be high at that time. Similarly, the nature of job, whether temporary, permanent, contractual, then the real wages of worker will be comparison with a worker with permanent job. Means if the permanent job are there, maybe the worker will get more real wages. But if the job of the nature of job will be temporary, then there will be less real wages. When social status attached with the job in a society is high, the real wages for that job considered to be high, like IES, IPS, and all reported the job. The real basis of these jobs is very high because of the social status, because of the social status attached with a job. Now let us discuss the theories of wages. There are various theories of wages, that how the wages are determined. The most important will discuss briefly: subsistence basis theory of wages, wage fund theory, residual claimant theory, standard of living theories of wages, bargain theory of wages, marginal productivity theory of wages, and modern theory of wages. Now let us discuss one by one all these theories. First, subsistence theory of wages. The subsistence theory of wages was first formulated by the physiocratic economist in 18th century. Physiocratic economist, who were we also known as the agricultural economist, whose theory was based on the natural order. Their opinion, agriculture is everything. So further, this theory was developed and improved upon the German economist. Even Ricardo or Malthus also contributed to the theory of wages, and Karl Marx made it the base of his theory of exploitation. The theory of exploitation of is based on the theory of subsistence based theory. Now, subsistence means a standard of living or wage that provides only the bare of necessities of life, only for survival. The amount paid to the labor for their survival only is called subsistence. Living condition in which someone has only as much food or money as they need in order to stay alive. Only to stay alive. According to the stay alive, when payment made to them is called subsistence wages. Refugees in the camp are living at subsistence level. Or subsistence theory of wages is based on the assumption, this is in the long run basically. Subsistence level, only the amount paid to the labor for their survival in order to stay alive. Wages of labor are equal to subsistence labor in the long run according to this theory. In the long run, wages are equal to the subsistence level according to this theory. This is one of the traditional theory. oldest theory. If wages are fall below this level, according to this theory, there is assumption that if wages will below the subsistence level, the workers would starve, and it will reduce their supply. Thus, the wages rate will rise to the subsistence level. Below that level, there will be starve. And if above that level, on the other hand, if the wages are tend to rise above the subsistence level, workers would be encouraged to bear more children, maybe more marriage, which will increase the supply of labor or supply of workers, which in turn will bring wages down to the subsistence level. More supply, less wages. Less supply, more wages. And there will be equilibrium in the economy. But this theory has been criticized on that this is not possible. According to this theory, wages of worker in long term are determined at the level of wages which is just sufficient to meet their necessities of life. This is very, very important. Subsistence means just sufficient to meet their necessities, their basic necessities of life. This is the subsistence. This level is called subsistence level. The classical economist called it is a neutral level of wages. Here, trade unions play an important role in increase these wages. But there are some defects of the subsistence theory of wages. This theory examines the wage determination from the side of supply only and ignore the demand side, whereas demand side also play an important role in determination of anything. This theory has been criticized on the ground that it has not been correct in conclusions. Not possible. This theory explains that all the workers get equal wages. This is not possible. Because of they have maybe capability, they may be more efficient, more trained. As we know, the workers differ from their productivity. The productivity of worker cannot be same, and hence the difference in their wage is natural. You cannot say that for all workers equal wage should be paid. No, this is not possible. Now, next important theory is known as wages fund theory. Adam Smith has developed this theory, and this theory was based on the basic assumption the workers are paid wages out of the predetermined fund of the wealth. Means you have already fund available, and the workers will be paid out of that predetermined fund of wealth which you have, or employer have already the fund, and this fund called wage fund created as a result of savings. The demand for labor and the rate of wage depend upon the size of wages fund. How much the wage fund you have, the demand for labor and the rate of wages will depend upon that fund which you have or the employer had. Accordingly, if the wage fund is large, wages would be high, and vice versa. Means if the wage fund is low, wages would be low, according to wage fund theory. The employers set apart certain amount of capital to pay the wages to the laborers, and this is fixed and constant. According to this theory, this is fixed. The amount which you have created for the as a wages fund, that is fixed and constant. Wage rate is equal to wage fund divided by number of laborers. This fund will be divided among the number of laborers. More laborers, less wage fund, there will be less wage rate. Less number of laborers, maybe the wage rate will be high. An increase in wage rate is possible only by an increase in wage fund. If you want to increase the wages of the laborer, then you have to increase the wage fund, or you must have the more wage fund. Or by a reduction in the number of laborers, you can increase the wage rate. They are two important things. To increase the wage rate, if you want to increase the wage rate in the economy, two options is there. Either increase the wage fund or reduce the number of laborer according to wages fund theory. Thus, there exists a direct relationship between wage rate and wages fund, and inverse relationship between wage rate and number of laborers. Higher number of laborers, less wage rate; less number of laborers, higher will be wage rate. Now, next one is the residual claimant theory, developed by A. Walker. According to Walker, there are four factors of protection, and we know that we have four factors of protection, or these are business activities also: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurs. Rent we pay for the use of land, wages we pay for the usage of labor, interest for the usage of capital, and profit for the it is paid to the entrepreneurs. He views that once all these three factors are rewarded, what remains left is paid to the workers. According to this theory, the amount which you have, say 100 crore, if 20 crore you pay to the entrepreneurs as a profit, say 30 crore pay to the capital, 20 plus 30, 50, say 30 crore for as a rent, 80, and left 30 crore will be distributed among the laborer. Once, first of all, pay all the amount, all the reward to the three factor protection, say land, capital, and entrepreneurs, and left amount is distributed, should be distributed among the labor as per the residual claimant theory. According to this theory, worker is a residual claimant. According to this theory, after all factor of protection or services have received their remuneration, the person agent supposed to receive the left residual amount is called residual claimant. The payment made to other factors, pay, and the left, the amount is left, the amount which is left is called as the residual claimant. Next is standard of living theory, this improved version. Standard of living theory of wages proposed by Terence in 1815. Standard of living as according to the standard of living of the laborer. This theory is an improved and refined version of subsistence theory. You have to pay according to this theory, wages to the workers according to their standard of living, on which condition they are living, according to their condition, according to their standard of living, according to their basic requirement. According to this theory, wages is determined by the standard of living of the workers. Standard of living refers to the bare necessities of life, and also include the education and recreation of which the workers is habituated. So this means the wage level is determined by the standard of living of the workers, in which condition they are living. Payment should be paid according to their standard of living. Wages will influenced by the necessities more necessities are there, maybe wages will be high, more comfort already they have, you have to pay more money, which worker has been habituated to over the period of time in the long run. So, but there are some limitations of living theory of wages. Standard of living theory of wages. Standard of living theory of wages has, there are some limitations. Say it was considered one-sided, as the demand side of labor is ignored, only the supply side of labor considered in the determinants of wages. Means if you are living in the cities or the rural sector, it is based on the standard of living. Payment will be on the standard of living, or the basic necessities, or for the requirement of the workers on that particular area. The assumption of the long run was criticized by other, that many economists say. Keynes, for example, says that in the long run we all die. So there is no long run. Everything should be decided in the short run. Long run is not possible because of there is no long run. So whereas this theory is applicable in the long run only. This theory of wages was also criticized, not for being practical. This is just imagination, not practical, it's not possible according to standard of living. The theory was also criticized by its vague concept of standard of living, as there is no exact method to measuring the standard of living of the workers. Habits have to be known the first order and to fix the basis, which was the impractical, which is not practical, which is not possible, that you have to fix ways according to the standard of the workers or habits of their workers is not possible, and this is not justifiable. Another significant drawback was the ignorance of the concept of differential wages. Different wages for the worker with the same standard of living is not explained by this theory. Economists also opined that the theory did not provide a clear explanation as to whether wages determine the standard of living or standard of living determine the wages. There is a confusion that which determine whether the wages determine the standard of living or the standard of living determine the wages. Now next is bargaining theory of wages. The bargaining theory of wages was developed by Davidson, Thompson, Morris. According to this theory, wages are determined or based on the bargaining between producers and workers, between employer and employee. The wages are based on the bargaining power, bargaining between producers and workers or laborers. If workers have more bargaining power, the wages will be high, and if the bargaining power of the workers is weak, they will get less wages. Means if the employers, if the producers have more bargaining power, they will give less wages to the laborer. Whereas if laborer has the workers have more bargaining power, they will get more wages. So bargaining play a very important role according to bargaining theory. The wages are determined according to the bargaining theory on the basis of the bargain. This theory of wages hold that wages are working conditions are determined by the relative bargaining strength of the parties to the agreement. That what are the time, hours and working conditions. It is basically the relative bargaining strength of the parties to the agreement. Modern economist opinion that bargaining theory of wages was incomplete as the bargaining power of the workers in general was weak in comparison to the producer. The producer has more bargaining power because of they are employer, they have to pay the wages. So this theory is not again the practical. Lot of defects are there. The marginal productivity, next theory is marginal productivity theory. And marginal productivity theory we have also discussed in the previous module. Whole chapter we have discussed about this marginal productivity theory. But briefly we'll discuss here what is marginal productivity theory of wages. The marginal productivity theory of wages states that labor is paid according to the contribution of their production. This is a more practical theory of wages, that wages will be paid to the laborer, reward will be given to the laborer according to their contribution in the production. Means more contribution, more productivity, more wages will be there. Less contribution, less productivity of the laborer, less amount will be given to them. If producers hire the services of labor because of he possess the ability to contribute in production. Why producer will demand for a labor? Because of they have the capacity to produce something. The laborer, the workers can contribute something in production. That's why the demand. It means the demand for labor is not direct demand. Demand for labor is drive demand. Demand for labor is indirect demand, because of they have ability to contribute in production. They have capacity to produce this something. They can render their services. So if the worker contribute more in production, he or she is paid more wages. If he contributed less, wages also will be less, as per the marginal productivity theory. It depends upon the contribution of workers, how much they contribute in a particular production of a commodity. More production, more productivity means more wages will be given to them. Marginal productivity of labor refers to change the total revenue by putting one more labor. Marginal means additional, and keeping all the other factor of production constant. If you change one labor, how much changes will be there in total revenue? We can calculate the productivity, marginal productivity. The marginal productivity theory argues that the equilibrium of each laborer will be rewarded in accordance with the marginal productivity. The laborer will be rewarded according to their marginal productivity, according to their contribution in the production of a commodity. Under the condition of perfect competition, say, we assume if there is a perfect competition, wages are determined by the value of marginal product of a labor. We have already discussed. Marginal product of labor in any industry refers to the amount by which output increases when one more labor is employed. When more labor is employed. Value of marginal product of labor is the price which the marginal product can get in the market. Marginal product of labor is the price paid to them, which the marginal product can get the market according to the market value. Now last one, the modern theory of wages. Modern theory of wages. According to modern theory of wages, wages are the price of services rendered by a labor to the employer. The price which we paid for the services rendered by the labor to the employer is called wages according to modern theory. This theory regards wages as a price of labor, and all the prices are determined by the demand and supply analysis. So in this theory, the demand for labor and supply of labor play important role in determination of wages. Not the standard of living, not the subsistence, not the wage fund, not the other theory which we have discussed, the other condition we have already discussed, no. But in the determination of wages, the demand for labor and supply of labor play an important role. According to this approach, wages are determined by the interaction of the market forces of demand and supply. Market mechanism, the mechanism where demand for and supply of play an important role, where demand will intersect the supply. That will be the equilibrium point. That will be the point of determination of wages. The point where demand for labor will intersect the supply of labor will be the determination of wages. Will be the determination of wages. It means here we'll discuss two important things: demand for labor. Determination of wages under the modern theory are basically two things, or three you can say. One is the demand for labor and supply of labor, and of course the equilibrium wages level, in where demand for labor will intersect the supply of labor is called the equilibrium wage rate or equilibrium point. Let us discuss what is demand for labor. The demand for labor comes from the entrepreneurs as it is used for the production of goods and services. Why demand for labor? Because of the labor has capacity to produce the commodity. They can contribute something to produce a commodity. They can create the utility of the commodity, creation of utility. They have the capacity to produce the things. So demand for labor basically comes from the entrepreneurship. The demand for labor depends upon the productivity of labor. This is very important. The demand for labor depends upon the productivity of labor. That's higher the productivity of labor, greater will be the demand for them. Lesser the productivity, if they are unskilled, they are not trained, they have less productivity, the demand for labor for it from the employers will be less. Even the demand curve of an industry obtain horizontal summation in case of if in curve and all the farm and industry. It depends upon the market structure. Whether you have the perfect competition, means if you have the, you are assuming that there is a homogeneous product, there is no differentiation in the labor which we are used, or imperfect market, or which type of market you have, that is very very important. Demand curve basically depends upon it, but there is an inverse relationship between wages and demand for labor. This is the general theory says that higher the wages, lower will be the demand for labor, less will be the wages, higher will be the demand for labor. So wage is independent factor. Demand for labor depend upon wages. There is an inverse relationship between demand for labor and wages. Higher wages, lower for demand for labor. Lower will be wages, this will be greater demand for labor. So there is an inverse relationship. Let us explain with the help of following this table, that demand for labor. How can we discuss the demand for labor? Now see, this first diagram is about the firm and second one is the industry. First is about the firm and second curve is about the industry. The laborer employed are represented here on the x-axis, and y-axis represent the wages. The demand curve for labor is dt, and it has downward sloping, means higher the wages, lower the demand for labor, and if the lower the wages, higher will be the demand for labor, downward slopes of this one. When basis, for example, is OB, or here OB, then demand for workers is OA in both cases. OA. When wages rise, say OB to OB1, when the wages rise to OB to OB1, demand for labor falls A1. Demand for labor falls to A1. Hence, the demand for workers is low at the higher wages. In the same way, when wages fall O to OB1, OB2, the demand for labor rise to OA2. The left part of this figure, this diagram, explain the variations in the demand for labor at different levels of wages. This in case of firm. In case of firm. If the point K is not a point of equilibrium, it shows that maybe there is some loss. E1 is the point of equilibrium, and the point E and E2 indicate the point of equilibrium of the firm employing varied number of laborers. The demand for labor is obtained by joining all these points. Whether the K or the E1 or E or E2, we have a industry demand. Because of industry is a group of firms. So demand for this industry is obtained from the various demand for laborer of the firms. Now, which factor affecting the demand for labor? Demand for labor, which factors? Or demand for labor depends upon which factor? Say technological change. The first one is the technological change influence the marginal productivity of labor. More technological change, more advancement, maybe there will be less demand for labor. These changes also influence the demand for labor. Second, drive demand. The demand for labor is not direct demand. We will not directly consume the demand for labor, but the demand for labor is drive demand. Means that the demand for labor depends upon the demand for goods and services which it produces. If the demand for goods and services will be high in the economy or a country, maybe there will be more demand for labor. But the demand for that particular goods or the goods or services produced by them in the economy will be less, there will be less demand. So drive demand, the demand for labor is drive demand. If at a particular given time the demand for particular commodity produced by the labor is high, demand for labor shall also be high and vice versa. Means when demand for a particular commodity produced by the labor is low, the demand for labor shall also be low. Third important factor is the proportion of labor. The demand for labor also depend upon the proportion in which labor is used with other factor of production, say capital. More capital, definitely there will be less labor will be used by the employer, but less of capital, the proportion may be high. When a small amount of labor is engaged in production of a product, the demand for that type of labor is inelastic. For instance, the demand for labor operating automatic machines or latest machines in large scale factories is inelastic. We need the fixed amount of the labor, we need minimum amount of labor, which the demand for labor will be inelastic. Fourth one, the cost of other factor of production. The demand for labor depends upon the cost of other factor of production, which can used in substitute of labor. The substitute factors are costly. Maybe if the price of capital will increase, the price of other equipment or machinery will be high, the entrepreneurs will be substitute labor in place of costly factors. Means there will be more demand for labor as compared to the other factors of production. But this, if the price of these factors, say the price of machine or any capital used by them, by the employer will be less, then maybe demand for labor will be high. In such cases, the demand for labor will be high and vice versa. Now, next second part of this theory is the supply of labor. Supply of labor is the total hours that workers wish to work at a given real base. The rate at which the workers are ready to render their services is supply of labor. The term supply of labor is used to measure the number of hours of worker which offered at a given rates per period of time. The supply of labor in an economy depends upon both economic as well as non-economic factors. Supply of labor basically depends upon two important things: factors, economic factors and non-economic factors. Economic factors influence the supply of labor comprises existing employment, desire to increase the monetary income. If you want to increase monetary income, if you want to increase more money, then definitely supply will be more. Bargaining power of the laborers is more, then maybe supply of labor will be more. The size of population also important factor. More population means more supply, less population means less supply, and income distribution in the economy, etc. While the non-economic factor consists the family affection, then you have to work somewhere, then supply may be high. Social conditions, if you want to improve the social condition, you need more money, more supply will be there. Domestic environment, etc., is the important factors. In simple words, the supply of labor indicates the number of workers ready to work at a particular wage rate. The number of workers who will ready to provide their services, ready to contribute in the production at a particular wage rate is called supply of labor. Supply of labor in case of firm may be perfectly inelastic. For industry, the supply of labor will be upward sloping left to the right. We'll discuss with the help of next diagram. The economy as a whole, the supply of labor depicts it with the help of these two diagrams. See, first is about the supply of labor in case of industry, and the second one, the supply of labor in case of the economy as a whole. X-axis represent the supply of labor and Y-axis represent the wages. The supply of labor is SS. SS is the supply of labor. It has an upward sloping from the point of, that is this side. This means higher the wages, higher will be the supply of labor in case of industry. But in case of economy, the supply of labor is backward bending. At the backward bending. This implies here E is the equilibrium point, you can say. This implies the supply of labor increase up to E point, say here, and then start diminishes with the increase of wages. When the wages rise OB to OB1, the supply of labor start decreasing. The reason stated by the modern economist for decrease in supply beyond this point, beyond this point they start decreasing, that workers prefer more leisure when more leisure to work at higher wages. Meaning why? If the more wages you are paying beyond this point, as economy as a whole, the supply start decreasing, the supply of labor, because of the labor prefer now more leisure as compared to work. In these stages, as you increase the wages, the supply of labor is also increased. But after a certain point, industry in case of industry, it is the positive and proportional relationship between supply of labor and wages. But in case of economy, it is backward bending. Supply curve is backward bending. Now, which factor affecting the supply of labor? The size of population. Of course, the supply of labor depends upon the several factors. For example, the first place, the supply at given time of period depends upon the number of laborers in the economy. Like India, we have more population, there is definitely more supply of labor available to us, so the supply of labor will be more. The size of population is determined by the difference between the birth and death rate. If it is high, supply of labor will be high. Second, efficiency of labor. The supply of labor does not merely depend upon the size of population, but it also depends upon the efficiency of labor. Efficiency depends upon the several factors like hours of working, services, working condition, wage rate, economic incentives, work ability of the labor, etc. Mobility of labor. The supply of labor also depends upon the mobility of the labor. The factors are fully mobile. The labor is fully mobile. If the labor, then definitely supply will be more. But if the labor is less mobile, either because of the means of transportation, maybe they don't have the transportation facility, or there's a underdeveloped country like we have many areas we don't have the transportation facility because of their maybe some there can be another condition that because of their climate, their language, their traditional hindrance, they don't want to shift, they are not fully mobile, then the supply of labor will be limited, and vice versa. Means if all facilities are there, there are no restrictions, there's no language and traditional hindrance, then definitely supply of labor will be high. According to modern theory, wage level is determined by the point of intersection of demand and supply. The equilibrium point will be where the firm differ according to the division of time in the short run and in the long run. In the short run, firm can earn maybe supernormal profit, normal profit and loss, but in the long run maybe only the supernormal profits. But see this in this diagram, the supply of labor, SS is the supply of labor, DT is the demand curve, and E is the equilibrium where demand intersects the supply. If you assume that supply is constant, if the demand will increase, definitely wages will increase and the supply of labor will also increase. But if the demand for labor decrease, then if the supply is constant, then definitely it will be the equilibrium point will be E2, and OB is the price of your basis to the, and this one is the quantity of the labor. Now, when the condition of perfect competition, for example, prevail in the market, the firm can only adjust the number of workers or employees accordance with the existing wage rate. The equilibrium of firm offers according to the division of labor in the short run and the long run. In the short run, supply of labor cannot be fully adjusted to the demand. Say if a firm earn supernormal profit, normal profit can be there, losses can be there. If wage are considered the cost by the producer, determination of the wage and depends on the cost curves and the revenue curves. See with the help of this diagram, in the perfect competition, if you see this OW, this is wage, which is we have already discussed. AW is equal to MW. In the perfect competition, average wage is equal to margin wage. This is MRP, this is ARP, average margin revenue product, and this is average revenue product. And this is if the ARP, average revenue product, will be high as compared to AW, then there will be profit. But the condition here, then when the ARP is maximum, MRP will intersect here, and in this condition, PWQE is the supernormal profit or abnormal profit. In case of normal profit, this is in case of normal profit, this AW MW should be tangent with the ARP and MRP intersect from above. This is the equilibrium point. OW is the wage and ON is the number of wages. In case of loss, definitely average revenue or average wage or MW will be high as compared to revenue. Revenue is less than wages, so definitely this PWEQ is the minimum loss to the employer here, because of average revenue is less than average wage, and no doubt MRP intersect the ARP from the above. In the long run, supply curve can be adjusted match with the demand for labor, the equilibrium number of laborers. The equilibrium number of laborers to be employed by the firm is at the point where margin revenue are equal to the margin revenue productivity. That's the MW is equal to MRP. And for the equilibrium employee in the industry, average wage should be equal to the average revenue. That is AW is equal to ARP. Like this one. Normal profit here, where AW is equal to MW, ARP is tangent with AW, or MRP intersect from the above, and this is the normal profit in case of long run. So let us summarize this chapter, this whole module. Labor, concept of labor or wages we have discussed. Labor is one of the four factor of production, and the payment made to the laborer is whether the that they paid to the labor is known as the wage. And labor in term of both physical or mental work, wage is remuneration paid to the labor. Different theories we have discussed, different economists they have dwelt. Briefly, these theory, for example, subsistence theory we have discussed, wage fund theory we have discussed, residual claimant theory we have discussed, standard of living we have discussed, theory of wages like bargaining, margin productivity, and modern theory of wages we have discussed in this module in detail. And lastly, the equilibrium point of wages, where the equilibrium point as per the modern theory, demand and supply of labor play very important role, and the point where demand for labor intersect the supply of labor is the equilibrium point. With this, thank you very much.